Can you still profit using real estate in 2025? This is a question I get all the time. And as a CPA who works with lots of real estate investors all over the US, I'm going to share with you what's working, what's not working, and how you can capitalize on this market. Let's start with understanding the market and what is going on right now. Interest rates have not really come down just yet. Inventory has gone up. A lot of people are sitting on the sidelines being very fearful to invest and sitting on cash. The real estate market isn't crashing, but it's definitely changing. One of the biggest demographics are people who are retiring. As people age, the need is for different types of housing. Maybe you no longer want to live in a two-story home, right? Because as you age, maybe getting upstairs could be more difficult. And also, as you age, people typically tend to downsize. So we no longer need 4-bedroom, 3-bath. Maybe we are better suited for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or even a 1-bedroom, 1-bath that's a single story. So when you're looking for rental properties, be aware of who your potential tenant might be, because then you can buy the right type of property and property profile that will fit what their needs are. There's also a change in demand for different types of housing, specifically more flexible housing. We've seen the rise in demand for co-living real estate, for example. What is co-living exactly? Well, it's similar to the traditional rent by the room concept, but in co-living, the property is specifically designed for renters. So you might have people who are not in the income range to go out and rent a studio or an apartment on their own. But in a co-living space, they can rent their own room for an extended amount of time at a much more affordable rate. As investors, we've seen that cash flow could be significantly increased if you have one home that's rented out as co-living to maybe 4, 5, 6, or 8 tenants versus that same home rented out in the traditional sense to one long-term tenant. When you're buying properties, one really great thing to look at is what I call multiple uses. So when you analyze a deal and this property may work as really, really great for a short-term rental, but we also want to know, how does it operate if I were to rent it as a midterm or even a long-term rental? Why? Because sometimes there are going to be changes in how you're able to use a property. So you might have a property where when you analyze the deal for purchase, short-term rental is an option, but maybe after a year or two of owning it, there are changes in local ordinances where it can no longer operate as a short-term rental. So these are reasons why we always want to take a look at what are the multiple uses of a property before I acquire it. So until real estate prices come down significantly when you're purchasing rental property, another really great tip is to take a look at what is the highest and best use of a specific property. ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units that are added on to existing properties, have become super, super popular. And in fact, a lot of governmental agencies have made it easier for different states and cities to add ADUs onto existing properties. If you are someone investing in more expensive areas like California or New York, where land is super expensive, keeping an eye out for a property where you are able to add additional units on site could be a really smart move. ADUs also work really well because you now have families who are living together generationally, right? So you have people who have aging parents that may or may not be able to afford their own property. And so it could make sense for that aging parent to live on site in the ADU that's been constructed. You also have families whose kids are growing up but not necessarily ready to move out on their own. And this could be another example of why having an ADU oftentimes creates additional value and need for your property. Now, of course, if we're just talking strictly from a landlord's perspective, if you have a main house and an ADU versus just a house by itself in a larger yard, oftentimes you can get much higher rental income with 2 properties on one lot. If you have any questions, be sure to drop it in the comments below and hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.